Good afternoon. I'm Caitlin Matson, and this is the Green Room. Maestro Daniel Hege joins me. The Wichita Symphony has their next Masterworks concert on Sunday afternoon. Brahms and Beethoven. Hi, Daniel.
Hello, Caitlin. Hello,
Are
everyone.
are you keeping warm?
Yes, it's cold here, but it's not actually as cold as in Kansas, so I'm bringing extra layers.
It's been intense. It should be a lot better this weekend for people to get out and get to some live music. We all have cabin fever. We're all ready for it.
Right. I think once people get inside the hall and they hear this glorious music, I think it'll be well worth any kind of slight discomfort there might be of going out in the cold.
Brahms and Beethoven, they're just two powerhouse selections on this concert, starting with Brahms' second piano concerto.
Yes. Um, Brahms is really deemed as kind of the next Beethoven by Robert Schumann when Brahms was a 20-year-old and showed up at Robert and Clara Schumann's doorstep. Um, he wanted to play music for Schumann, his elder. And when Schumann and Clara heard Brahms play, they basically said, "You are the heir to the legacy of Beethoven," which was very difficult for Brahms to hear. And that's because he was so self-deprecating and he worked so hard. And of course, that kind of praise from that level of a musician was something that was great to hear. And yet Brahms already felt like he was working so hard to just live up to being a good composer. And now to be compared with Beethoven, that was so much, maybe too much, because we know that Brahms tried to write his first symphony for over 20 years before he could actually put it in, before he could actually publish it. And so actually concertos like the first and second piano concertos and the violin concerto and the double concerto for violin and cello were places where he felt like he could write and publish a little bit earlier, because the symphony was kind of the most grand intellectual work that one would have to work up to. And he knew he would be most compared to Beethoven that way. But this second piano concerto, by the time he wrote it, he was actually quite famous. And he had already been compared to Beethoven by many people. And so once he was able to get that first symphony out about 8 years earlier, he was able to write many compositions quite lucidly because he had that confidence, and he was quite well known, as I mentioned. And he only wrote two piano concertos. We're going to hear the second one, and it's incredibly virtuosic and beautiful. Four movements instead of the normal three, and we're so very fortunate to have Stuart Goodyear with us to play the concerto.
Stuart Goodyear is a familiar name. He'll be a familiar face to anybody who was attending the Wichita Symphony concerts right before COVID shut everything down. Wasn't Stuart's Beethoven piano performances the last before the pandemic put everything on hiatus for a while?
That is correct. That is correct. We haven't seen Stuart since then. He actually played all five Beethoven piano concertos over 2 nights, which is astonishing. We also had Lisa de La Salle earlier play all of Rachmaninoff's symphonic works for orchestra and piano before. And then it's as though, okay, challenge accepted. Let's do Beethoven's complete piano concertos over 2 nights, which was astonishing. Stuart is an incredible artist. He's also done this annual sonatathon, which is where he performs all 32 sonatas by Beethoven in one day.
It's
In one day. That is
intense.
unfathomable. Stuart's also the guy that we enlisted to come play several Steinway pianos when we went to New York to purchase the new piano that we have. It's not brand new anymore. It's about 5 years old, but it's still getting broken in. And we wanted a great pianist in New York to come down and play on several of them so we could choose which one would be the best. And he played on all of them. And the guy has an amazing memory. He said, "Well, what are you playing this year?" And we said, "Some Mozart." Okay, so he started playing Mozart. What about Prokofiev? And what about Chopin? And what about, he just started playing just stuff from memory and helped us to get that piano. So he has a special connection to the piano he's going to play, and that is our piano.
And the Brahms, as you mentioned, is a virtuosic piece of music. It's technically demanding. It's also so long. It's so long for a pianist. Isn't it over 40 minutes?
Yeah, over 40 minutes. I always think that's so funny. I mean, that's true. What people say that concertos that are that long are considered, quote, long. However, in the scheme of life, how many people are streaming dramas and comedies that are 42 minutes long? They don't think of it as long, right? Not at all.
In the grand
So,
scheme of things, it's a mere blip
yeah,
of joy to experience. But for the performer themselves, for the pianist sitting there, the concentration and the dedication to, over 40 minutes of being the star of the show
yes.
just seems pretty intense to me.
The work is really a titan. I mean, it's like a symphony, actually. It's like a symphony for the orchestra and also piano having a huge part of it, being the protagonist in it. Over four movements. Like I said, most concertos were written in three movements, and a lot of concertos started to end up around 25 to 30 minutes. So 42 minutes or so is long, but it's only another 12 minutes. But it is Herculean
Mm.
in scope and size and power. I mean, and Brahms was so self-deprecating about it. You know, he said he wrote to his friend while he was writing it. He said, "I'm writing a tiny little, he said, tiny piano concerto, and it has a little wisp of a scherzo, a wisp." The scherzo is like it is like granite, and it's flying like the wind, and it's 9 minutes long, which is substantial for a little wisp of a
Little
scherzo.
wisp.
Yeah,
Oh, that old thing. Just this, as you say, Herculean concerto for piano. Uh, we're going to actually listen to a bit of the Beethoven. So
okay.
Beethoven's seventh, everybody has a favorite Beethoven symphony, and you're going to hear all the usual suspects, the ninth, the fifth, the Pastoral Symphony, and the seventh often makes the list. It's my personal favorite. I adore this symphony.
Yes.
Um, and it has a movement that we hear often in pop culture, in movies and television and film.
We do. It's frequently used. In fact, I may have heard it that way the first time I heard it when I was a kid, and I said, "Wow, what is that music? It's just completely entrancing." And then I later learned what it was, and I just wanted to listen to that over and over again. In fact, that was the movement, even though it ends in such a glorious way. That's the movement that people wanted to hear again after it was performed first time.
We're going to hear it. This is the second movement from Beethoven's seventh, the Allegretto. We'll be back and talk more about this Sunday's performance with Maestro Daniel Hege in just a moment. That is the second movement of Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, the Allegretto, and that is programmed for this Sunday afternoon with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra. I have Maestro Daniel Hege with me in the green room talking about this Sunday's concert, the logistics. It starts at 3 o'clock. It is in Century 2 Concert Hall. If you would like to come an hour early, Maestro Hege and myself will be talking together and leading a concert talk about the music. Um, and for tickets, go to wichitasymphony.org, or you can call their box office directly, which is 316-267-7658. And Daniel and I were just looking at the weather on Sunday afternoon, and it's going to be perfect, and we really think people should come out.
Yes, don't let the weather that's currently happening this very moment discourage you, because by the time of the concert on Sunday, it looks like it's going to be quite wonderful and just perfect for stepping out of the car and then getting into the concert hall and being warmed up again by the music. So
Absolutely.
I encourage everyone to go ahead and plan on it if you can.
Yes, our present is not our future. 38 to 40 degrees on Sunday afternoon. You go to the symphony. It's a 3 o'clock concert. You'll be out the door and driving home before the sun sets. It's that time of year where days start to get a bit longer. And you get to hear these two incredible works, Brahms' second piano concerto and Beethoven's seventh.
And you will have time to get home to watch the game, the Chiefs. So you
Oh,
won't miss
that.
anything. You'll be revved up. This is the perfect pregame warm up for you to
Pre-game
be.
with the symphony.
That's right.
All right, so we have Stuart Goodyear, a friend of the symphonies. He's performed with the Wichita Symphony before, most recently in I think it was January, February of 2020.
Yeah.
He is back and replacing another old friend of the symphony, Stephen Huff, who unfortunately, due to personal reasons, had to very last minute back out, and is quite sad about that.
Yeah, well, we were quite sad to hear that Stephen wasn't able to come this week because we've been planning on it for so long. But then when we found out Stewart was available and willing and ready to come in and play this monster-sized concerto, we were just over the moon, very happy because he has been a good friend to the orchestra, and for him to have this, relatively speaking, in his back pocket. Because let me tell you something, the second piano concerto of Johannes Brahms is not something that you say, oh, it's in a week. Okay, let me work on that. No, you would have had to have played it and really studied it and know it pretty much cold already
Hmm.
to be able to come in and play it. It is one of the most virtuosic. When I ever interview a pianist about what's the hardest piano concerto out there, they usually say it's between two pieces: Rachmaninoff third piano concerto and Brahms's second piano concerto. So not only are you going to hear the glorious music, just the expressive and powerful and passionate music of Brahms, but you're going to hear incredible pyrotechnics and virtuosity from the soloist. So that is just going to be something very wonderful in the first half. And then we move on to the second half of the program, which is Beethoven's Seventh, which, Caitlin, you said that was your favorite of the Beethovens.
It's my personal Beethoven favorite. The energy of those final couple of movements, it just catapults me into the stratosphere. My feet leave the ground. They leave Earth completely.
I had an experience like that too, watching a performance with Neville Mariner's St. Martin in the Fields. I was at a
Mm,
performance of them playing, and I just couldn't contain myself
yeah.
at that performance. The last part of the final movement. But when you mentioned that it's your favorite of the Beethoven symphonies, it's actually many people's favorite. In fact, I have this little thing that I found. Uh, uh, so WQXR in New York City has kind of a classical countdown. And for consistency, one can count on Beethoven's Seventh occupying the number two or number three slot in rotation with Dvorak's New World Symphony. And the only reason it doesn't get number one is because Beethoven's Ninth gets put into that one. So you really have to see what a favorite work this is. And even I read also recently that Beethoven even said that his Seventh Symphony was his favorite. So
He and I have that in common, you see.
yes, yeah. Well, you probably have more than that.
I'm basically
Yeah,
Beethoven,
like you're basically Beethoven. You're reincarnation.
essentially.
Um, uh, you know, the Seventh Symphony, even by Richard Wagner, was called the apotheosis of the dance.
Hmm.
Because really, if you look at all of the movements, they have a dance-like quality to them. You
Yes.
have this galloping motion of the first movement. And the third movement is a very fast scherzo. And the last movement is like a maniacal machine that has gone careening almost out of control. It
Yeah.
has so much energy, you almost wonder how a human being came up with this music. And there's something about Beethoven, he seems to always get it right. And that is, he blends the perfect amount of repetition with the perfect amount of change and variation. And bringing those two things together makes the music kind of get its hooks into you, because it makes you crave it
Yeah.
and it makes you anticipate it. And then on top of that, he keeps dashing your expectations because he leads you in one way and takes you another way. It's like a wild ride.
It
This
is. It's both
seven,
expected and unexpected.
right?
You know what you're getting, but it's so shocking and surprising. And it's one of those experiences listening to it, especially live and in person, where you find yourself so overwhelmed with adrenaline and excitement for what's happening and what you're experiencing that you just start laughing. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll be in the audience laughing because what I'm listening to is just so out of this world and fantastic
yeah.
that it's just a shot of adrenaline. And I really am so thankful for every single person that gets to experience it live on Sunday.
it is something very special when you hear it live, and that's why we do these concerts. So I would
Mm.
love to see as many people as possible out there for this
Uh, the
performance.
the concert's at 3 o'clock this Sunday. It's going to be beautiful, maybe 38 to 40 degrees in Wichita that afternoon. You can get your tickets at wichitasymphony.org or by calling the box office at 316-267-7658. Come an hour early for concert talk. That's at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Caitlin, and I hope to see everyone there.
Have a good afternoon.